Welcome to Tucson, Arizona. My name is Andrea, and as you can tell, we're not at the tea house today. We've been invited to join Austin, the owner, at the warehouse to do something a little bit different. So whenever we're looking for Austin, we come over here to learn about tea. And what do you have for us today?
Well, today we're going to talk about Sheng Puer. And there's two types of Puer, Sheng and Shu. Sheng is green, Shu is cooked.
That's pretty easy. I know Puer has become so popular, but people, sometimes they're not sure how to judge it.
Well, we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the aging process for Puer. We're going to talk about how to pick out a good cake for aging and a good investment cake. We're also going to talk about how to identify a cake that's made from old trees as opposed to bushes.
Sounds good. Let's get started.
We're going to talk about two cakes today. This one is from Jing Mai from 2011, and this is from Yulu, and it was made in 2006. So we're going to look at some of the differences between these two cakes as they age. Let's first look at the Jing Mai cake. Juping has split this in two for us, so I'm going to show you the top and the bottom. But first of all, let's look at the top, and you can see that it's relatively greenish. There's a lot of variation in the colors. There's some green, there's some dark green, there's some light green, there's some silver. The silver part that we're looking at are buds. And because this is a traditionally made cake, they pick it in the traditional leaf configuration, which is two leaves and a bud. So one of the things that we want to think about when we're examining a cake is that throughout the cake, all of the tea ingredients, what we call mao cha, is the same consistency. So let me just show you the middle of the cake. So you can see inside of the cake pretty well matches with the outside of the cake. This is the bottom of the Jing Mai cake. Now let's look at some of the details in the cake. And one of the things that we're going to look at here are the stems. The stem is how we can tell whether it's from an old cake, rather an old tree, or a tree that's more than 100 years old, or from a bush. So let's just look at one of these stems here. Let me see if I can find one. You can see how small this stem is, and it should be flexible. It shouldn't be too rigid. The other thing about the stem is when you brew this tea, the stem is going to expand maybe 3 times the diameter of what a dried stem looks like. So it's going to swell up. The stems for a younger bush will not shrink down this small, and they won't expand in the same kind of way. So that's one way that we can tell whether it comes from an old bush or not, an old tree. Something that you should remember about old trees, tea that comes from old trees, you see a lot of Puers advertised as old tree. In fact, there's only about 7% of all of the puer produced comes from old trees. They will only the Mao Cha from an old tree is sought after and valuable everywhere in Yunnan. Don't think that there's any isolated minorities out there with their isolated old trees that can give you a good deal. It's not that way. Good old tree Mao Cha is very valuable, and it's very valuable just right from the farmer's hands. One of the things that happens in Yunnan with this type of Mao Cha is that buyers from Hong Kong, from Taiwan, collectors, will buy up the crop before it's harvested, and they have people camping out right there to make sure nobody gets that Mao Cha. It's the other thing is that when you look at the cake, you can see that there's some imperfections that would not be in a factory cake. You know that that it's coming from people that are making things in the traditional way with the traditional characteristics. Let me just point one of those things out to you. You see over here this light green leaf. See how light that color is? This leaf, typically in a factory that's grading their Mao Cha, will be thrown out, and it will never make it into a Sheng Puer cake unless it's coming from people that traditionally make cakes this way. So now let's move over here. Let me just move this over. I will move this over, and this is from Yulu. Now both of these areas are famous for their Mao Cha, and in both of these cakes, the Mao Cha is not blended. It comes from one area. Now this cake is 5 years older than the cake we just looked at. You can see how much it's aged. It's there's no green here. It's all shades of brown and red. You can see that the buds here don't have that. You can still notice them by their color, but they don't have that silvery kind of look. This one was a little bit tricky to split in half, but let me see if I can turn this over here. So, yeah, look at the stem here. You see how narrow that stem is? See, I'm bending it, right? It's still flexible. And if you could see really up close, you could see little specks of white in this cake. And that's from the natural fermentation. That's this is the bottom of the Yulu cake. Storing the cake is an issue in relationship to the value that it's going to acquire. There's two schools of thoughts on this, but there's wet and dry storage. Dry storage tries to keep the humidity of in the area where the cake is stored below 70%. We're in Tucson, so we don't really have an issue with humidity. But if those little dots are green or they're blue, you should throw it away, because that's mold. That's not good for you. And it's very often that will happen in wet storage, which causes the fermentation to happen a little bit faster. But if your Mao Cha comes from a older tree, it will turn quicker. You see, this is only five years old, and you can see, and it's dry stored. You can see how dark it already is. And you know, you can see the stems here, how small those stems are down. Yeah, let me just put it against the white there. Let me turn this back over. So, if you look at some of the tea leaves that came loose as we were breaking that up, you can see how nice those tea leaves look. That's a good quality. That's good quality Mao there. So that's a quick lesson on green cakes. I want to show you also how these are packed. In Chinese, all cakes are called teashop. That means they're packaged. This is the package that would be used if it was going on a horse. It's bamboo. It's wrapped in bamboo, and there's 7 cakes in each one of these bundles. It just teashop means 7 cakes. We will in the future we will cook up some of this puer for you, brew some up, show you what the tea leaves look when it's brewed. One of the things that I wanted to mention also about tasting this puer, we'll talk about this more later, because these two taste very differently. The more green is very rich in the kind of tea polyphenols that green tea is rich famous for. So when you put that in your mouth, it's very robust. It's astringent. It covers all of your tongue. You'll get little pings of bitterness, which won't stay. You'll notice them. They'll be sharp, and you'll notice also the complexity, just like a Danchong oolong maybe, of the tea. You want to be able to taste that robustness in a very green cake. Now, for me, I like drinking green puer. I like the complexity. I like the astringency, but don't be put off by that. One of the things that I think is important for you to do is drink a lot of this tea, so that you develop your palate to appreciate the complexity and the different reactions that your tongue and the back of your throat have with this tea. This will be a lot smoother tasting. It won't have that same kind of astringency. It will also be changing color. This will be more of a brighter yellow, a greenish yellow that maybe even honey colored or amber. That, when you look at it in a cup or in a glass, it looks like it's alive. This will be turning redder from amber. There'll be some more brownish color with the red highlights. The other thing about these, in the back of your throat, you'll feel this. It will be slipperier in the back of your throat. But it's good to taste these different taste the cake at different ages to see how it changes. There's more sweetness in this taste. this is more on the astringent, bitter side. But there's a couple of kinds of bitterness with tea. One is the kind of bitterness that comes from overbrewing broken black tea. It's bitter when you put it in your mouth, and it's bitter all the way through. It doesn't change. This changes very rapidly in your mouth. So I think amongst most tea aficionados, the most developed palate is usually for Sheng Puer. One other thing about tasting, and this is true of good quality Sheng Puer that comes from high mountain areas in Yunnan, but it's true of all tea that's grown in a high mountain area. There will be a minerally quality to the taste that's very distinct. And one of the things about being at the top of the mountain is that, you know, these are old mountains, and because of rainfall and the natural erosion of the mountains, the concentration in minerals is much higher at the top of the mountain than it is down in the valley or in the terraces. You can taste the mineralness very distinctly. So look for that. But you can look for that for any tea that's advertised as being a high mountain tea. High mountains is where you will find old trees. You won't find them down low. So that's another way you can identify the cake, is to look for that mineraliness that's in the taste. Last year we had a master wine sommelier with us in Yunnan, and the first thing that she wanted to do is taste the dirt, and you can really taste that in high mountain teas. Another way you can, when your palate's more developed, you can notice that very easily.
Well, we hope that you enjoyed visiting us at the warehouse. And Austin, thank you for sharing this information. And hopefully we can come back again. You can give us some more information about Puer and other tea and tea culture information.
Happy to have you here.
Great. So until next time, we offer you good health and fine tea.
Cheers.
Please visit us on the web to learn more about tea and tea culture.